Hi everyone, I'm Pat Prokop with this Tropical Storm Nicole update for Tuesday, November 8th. Tropical Cyclone Nicole has undergone its transition from a subtropical storm to a tropical storm, now with 60-mile-per-hour winds. A tropical storm watch and storm surge watch has been issued for the Georgia coast from the Savannah River entrance southward to the Ottomaha River, where from there it changes to a warning southward down into the Florida coast. And in Florida, a hurricane warning is now in effect for much of the eastern coast of Florida. It appears that Nicole will intensify to a very strong tropical storm or even a low-end hurricane by tomorrow afternoon. A hurricane is a hurricane, and we'll have to watch out for that. But the storm will have a large outreach of damaging winds, not just the Florida area, but a large area of Georgia and South Carolina, and along with that, heavy rains. So with that being said, let's go to the computer models and take a look at the dynamics of the storm and see what the threats will be. And as of right now, it's not looking very good for Georgia and eastern South Carolina.
Well, here we go, looking at the satellite imagery. This is the infrared satellite imagery, and it shows the storm getting better organized and becoming more like a tropical storm than a subtropical storm. Subtropical storm has that big comma-looking shape, but this is now looking more tropical. Let's take a look at the true color version here in the visible spectrum. And there you can see the storm really ramping up. You can see the circulation developing in the center of the storm itself. So that's good news for the storm, bad news for us, looking at the satellite view there. A closer view shows the storm getting really ramped up right now. Looks like it's trying to encompass the entire low-level circulation, with the possibility of a future eye forming right in this area right over here. There you can see it wrapping around. Big thunderstorms on the east and north side and beginning to wrap around on the southern side and going into the eastern side, which would make that a full-fledged tropical system. Now, currently the storm is over very warm waters of the Atlantic north of Cuba and Hispaniola. These water temperatures are in the upper 20s to around 30 degrees Celsius. 29 degrees, I think that's like 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So you got some very warm waters, and this is the fuel for the hurricane itself, or the tropical storm, which will probably become a hurricane at that. So let's take a look at the computer models and the global forecast model. The US model, the main model, shows the storm right now getting a little bit better organized. Let's put this into motion, and ahead of time you can see the storm moving a little bit south of due west by the forecast models, and coming in around the near Miami right now is looks like a minimal hurricane, a category 1 hurricane. A hurricane is a hurricane. It doesn't matter the number, it can do a lot of damage. Of course, the higher the number, the more the damage. But anyway, also we're seeing some strong pressure gradients along the Georgia coast into the southern South Carolina coast. But this is at 1 o'clock Thursday morning, and let's go further into time. And there you can see by, let's say 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon, the storm is over the just north of Tampa with some very heavy rains. Now the rains already showing moving into the coastal regions of Georgia and South Carolina, and the strong winds continue. And then going ahead into 1 o'clock Friday afternoon has the storm well off to the north into the central Savannah River area. So keeping an eye on that. By sunrise on Friday, the storm should be right about here in southwest Georgia. Now, looking at this model, that's the general, the global forecast system. Let's take a look at the ICON, the German model, which I said yesterday did pretty good for the tropical storm, or rather Hurricane Ian, tropical storm system Ian. But it shows basically the same thing, maybe a touch further west than the GFS, not by much though. Now the bad thing is, the worst portion of the storm on a tropical system is on the east side. So this area right here is where you could see the very heavy rain squalls and the potential for short-lived tornadoes. And these will be within the rain squalls of very intense rain. That's where you would find these short-lived tornadoes. And again, this will be from, gosh, early Thursday morning into Friday morning, early Friday afternoon, the threat for the tornadoes in the eastern portions of Georgia and into South Carolina. Now, let's go into the Canadian model. Has it further eastward, but still has us on the east side of the storm itself, so that's bad news for us. Again, most severe weather is on the east side of the circulation of these storms, where you have the threat for intense rain squalls with gusty, strong winds and short-lived spin-up tornadoes. Okay, looking at the ECMWF, see if it's coming in yet, and it's up to 84 hours, and it's showing basically about the same thing here. There's a storm right around the Miami area on 1 o'clock Thursday morning, and then pushing it northward. It's just about the same as the GFS, maybe 10 miles further eastward, but it puts us in the bad sector over here. So we have to keep an eye on that, certainly. All right, let's look at the RGM model. And this is a higher resolution short-term model, and it shows the storm winds. And I'm concerned about these winds because this is going to be pushing up the tides. Here we are at 1 o'clock Thursday morning, and it's showing some very strong easterly winds coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. And let's back it up just a little bit for Wednesday night. Wednesday night, here we are at 7 o'clock Wednesday evening. We got some very strong winds pushing in the Atlantic Ocean. That's going to be driving up the tide. And it's also going to be causing gusty winds along the coastal counties, particularly of Georgia and South Carolina. Winds probably around 30 to 35 miles an hour, even greater, which could start producing some tree limb damage. All right, going into time, forward ahead, and we go into sunrise on Thursday, right about there. And there you can see very strong winds continuing across the Georgia and southern South Carolina coast. That's going to drive up the tide once again. And then has a storm centered over the central portions of the Florida Peninsula, and then continuing to move into the evening hour time right here, the evening tide. Now the winds are becoming a little bit more from the southeast instead of the east. So still a very strong fetch of winds coming off the Atlantic Ocean. So another very high tide for the Thursday evening, but then going into Friday morning, the storm will be more to the west of us, and at sunrise Friday should be located north of Valdosta, the center of rotation, and the winds are coming more southerly across the coastal areas of northeast Florida and Georgia, but still pushing inward to South Carolina. So the tides along the Georgia coast won't be quite as high. They'll still be elevated, but not quite as high. And over into the South Carolina, elevated tides once again. So, keep an eye on this. I'm going to have a little bit more information about the tides coming up right now.
The main threat period will be Wednesday through Friday evening, with the greatest threat period from early Thursday morning through Friday afternoon for our areas of coastal Georgia and South Carolina. The threat includes flooding high tides, damaging winds, and very heavy rains. A high surf will generate moderate to heavy beach erosion throughout the period. Some of the waves will be over 5 feet. There is a storm surge watch and warning for the Georgia coast. So here's what to expect. Flooding along the Georgia coast usually begins at about 9.5 feet or a little bit higher. From the Savannah River to the Altamaha Sound, expect the tide surge to be 2 to 4 feet, resulting in the morning high tide of 10 to 12 feet. South of the Altamaha River, it will be a little bit higher, 3 to 5 feet, with a surge resulting in a potential high tide of 11 to 13 feet. Here are the possible tidal heights around 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the evening for our areas of Beaufort County, Chatham County, and Glenn County. As you can see, it looks like Thursday morning will be the highest time for the tides. The tides could be lower or higher, but you should expect these levels somewhere around these values. There will also be a threat for very heavy rains and damaging winds Thursday and Friday, particularly in the coastal counties with lesser amounts further inland. However, there will be a threat for brief, short-lived tornadoes within the intense rain squalls, particularly Thursday night and throughout the day on Friday, particularly over southeastern Georgia and eastern South Carolina. Keep in mind, this system is still a few days out, and variations in the forecast path could occur, but the path is becoming more and more certain right now. However, it's important that you do not focus on just the exact track of the storm, since it is expected to be a very large and broad storm with hazards extending well to the north of the center of circulation and outside the cone. And this will affect much of the Florida Peninsula, Georgia, and South Carolina. But the bottom line is to be prepared, and part of that preparation would be to expect tree damage, power outages, and coastal flooding, particularly Thursday and on Friday. If you like this video, please hit the like button. It helps with that algorithm that YouTube has anyway. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. You can follow me also on my Weather and Nature Facebook page at Pat Prokop's Weather and Nature page, and on Twitter at Pat of Savannah. Yeah, that's who I am, Pat of Savannah. And on my website, savannahpat.name. On my website, I will have live radar data that will follow the storm and links also to the National Hurricane Center and our local National Weather Service. Now, before all is said and done, I did get up early this morning. I did get the picture of the eclipsed moon. It went behind the trees, but yeah, the moon was eclipsed this morning. There it is right there. Isn't that nice? Please continue to monitor this storm, particularly if you are in the southeast United States. Until next time, see you on YouTube.